Hi all. This is the first in well, hopefully a series or a few anyway of videos around Kings of War. Um, for those of you sort of who have tuned in from the gaming stuff I've done in the past, Kings of War is not a computer game; it's a tabletop war game. So it's miniatures, models, Warhammer, similar to that. In this edition specifically, we're going to be talking about there's a big tournament coming up called Clash of Kings. It's coming up in about a week's time now, which is a big 80-man tournament. It's basically a bit like the Championship. It's the biggest one we've had in the UK for Kings of War, I think, yet, ever, period. And so for this video, I'm basically going to be going through my army list and talking about what the army, what troops I've chosen, some of the strategy I've been employing. And I've also joined by, we would call him a legend, but he's a star very much in descent. He's a bit like, currently his Kings of War career is at the stage of Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. He's a fallen hero, but he's hopefully going to strike back at this one after a few bad finishes. The one, the only Dan King.
Hello, and it has to be noted, I am the current cock champion, 4 times cock champion, no less.
For God's sake. we right, that's even worse. This is our second go at recording this because I screwed up the audio in the first one.
You were cocked up.
And we managed at least a good 30-40 seconds before the cock joke appeared, but this time it's your first sentence out your mouth straight away.
You just got to go straight in, haven't you?
I'm just going to
You've got
start
to get
now.
the cock straight in, that's all I can say.
If someone invents a way to stab people through the internet, Dan, you're in so much trouble. So yeah, we're going to be going through the lists, talking about what we've chosen, why we've chosen it, and a bit of insight to how the strategy we're planning using, and we'll see how it goes from there. So first up, we're going to cover off Dan's army. In this case, Dan, you've decided to take your herd.
Yeah, herd is basically my army for the year. I tend to I try and make a new army each year, so just to keep things a little bit varied.
So we're going to go through the sort of different unit combos you've got here. So first up, we've got your Lycans and your Beast Pack.
Well, yeah, but I think first up we need to mention that it's an army of pussies.
Yes, Dan. That's the last one. It's the last freebie you get.
Mention. Basically, I mean, traditionally, people would use dogs and things, werewolves, or even goats, but I fancied sort of a cat theme. So there we go. So yeah, there's my Lycans. I've got 2 hordes of those. Brew of Strength, Brew of Sharpness. Both very hitty, fast, awesome units. They aren't Defense 5, like werewolves and such, but instead they've got Pathfinder and Regen. Very, very nice. If they don't die in one go, they tend to keep on going. So very useful units.
Yeah, I did find that when me and Dan played at the last tournament it was at. Not the last one you were at, but the last one I was at. And one thing I did notice with the Lycans, there was 2 units, and I hit one of them and took it straight down. It died, and it just went down like a sack of tatties. But the other one, I didn't kill it in the first round, and it just kept healing back and back and coming in again and again. I just could not get the damn thing to die.
Yeah. These particular models are conversions, by the way. Mantic werewolves converted with the panthers in front of them, basically the heads and tails, just to take them down a cat theme. Because although there's the odd were tiger out there or were panther sort of thing, there isn't many of them. Certainly not enough for a unit full. So. Yeah. Also notice that you can see that I'm working on my army board. It's not finished yet, so that's my project for this week. To need to get it ready in time for the cock. But basically, it's all extruded foam. It's going to be worked the same as the bases with the texture paint and the snow and crystals and that sort of thing. So hopefully, it should look pretty cool.
And then the other unit we've got there, of course, is one of the 2 Beast Packs you're running now.
Yeah, I've got two. I tried 4 at the tournament you were at, the Altrincham one, and it was just a little bit too much. 3 might possibly be the sweet spot, but it's fine. I'm making do with 2, and it's good. They're very useful units. You've got to have some chaff in Kings of War. You need to have something to sacrifice. It's very much like a pawn in chess. You need to have something to throw away. If you just go with all hard-hitting, expensive units, sure, they hit hard, but there's going to be times where you're going to take that charge and such. It's much better to do it with chaff, and you can just throw it in people's faces. They're really perfect for it. I mean, some people like the harpies, and don't get me wrong, or gargoyles. They're great too, but these are obviously cats, so in theme for the army. So.
Right. So what we've got next up? Of course, the stars of the show, really, the Stampedes.
Stampedes, yeah, 2 hordes of those. The one with the banner on the right, it's just out of shot slightly, is my elite unit. The one on the left is vicious, and it's vicious because it's got kittens.
And is that a couple of meerkats as well?
Yes, it's got meerkats as well. Yes. Yeah, I randomly wanted to add lots of interesting animals in my army, and I thought, well, meerkats make sense. And in the unit on the right, we've also, of course, got a meerkat and a warthog as well.
Is that thingy bob?
People reference.
I'm just trying to get it. I can see it. Lion King.
Yes. Yep.
All right, nice.
So if people want to sing Hakuna Matata during the game, I'm absolutely
I'd assume you do that whenever you get a flank charge off with that unit.
These are, of course, very, very useful units. They hit hard. The defence is a little low, so they're slightly prone to shooting, but they've got a great nerve, so it usually takes at least a couple of turns.
You can understand a bit you're understating a little bit when you say it hits hard. Was it crushing 1, thunders 3? How many attacks?
30.
Hitting on 4s?
On 4s, yeah.
So you're basically 15 hits that are pretty much wounding everything in 2s.
Yeah, unless, of course, we lose the TC. If we do that, then they're not nearly as hitty. I do find sometimes at the last tournament I got a dwarf king stuck into one, a flying dwarf king, and that wasn't much fun because they couldn't take down that defense 6, which is why you need the shamans, which I'll cover later. Yeah. So but yeah, units, love them.
Do you not find though? Because one of the things I'm working the Herd army for next year, and I've got the 2 Stampedes in because you look at the Herd list and you see Stampede, you have to put 2 in. It's just almost an auto include. But one of the things that annoys me slightly is they are just such an auto include. I've been trying to pick round them, but it just feels like there's nothing else that quite gives you just that pure devastation they're going to give you when they hit something.
Well, you're right. They are the hardest hitting unit in the army, but it's not like Guardian Brutes are far behind. And likewise, Lycans, of course, are damn hitty because, of course, they've got the nimble, so they've got a much greater chance of being able to get a flank charge off. The amount of games I've won with those Lycans getting flank or rear charges when people don't notice it, doing nimble charges is amazing. So they've got the brute strength, but I don't think they're necessarily essential. Of course, for my army, they were perfect for big cats, so absolutely ideal. But if I was to make another herd army, and I'm tempted to go a wolf one maybe at some point, I could certainly see concentrating more on Lycans and that sort of thing. Or those Guardian Brutes are very nice. So what I like about them, of course, is they've got the higher defense. The herd as a whole tends to be defense 3 and 4. There's not much that's higher than that. So having defense 5 center points for your army is really nice. So yeah, but they are very good. Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to go back and look at the list I'm currently working on and have a wee pick because I do want to try something a little bit different than just having the 2 Stampedes. So I'll see. So what have we got next here? I think it's characters. I believe I don't know who these fellas are.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of shamans. One of them is just out of the picture there. But the dwarf on the floor, he is very, very drunk. Once painted up, he'll have a big shiny red nose. I'm going to have these little beer bottles all scattered around him as well, and there's some barrels just off shot as well.
You've fair got into your hobby recently because for those who don't know, I've known Dan for years and years now, and when we always used to play, Dan was like he was kind of similar to I was in the past as well, a complete war gamer, like grey plastic, whatever, fine with the painting. The only reason anything ever get painted was for a tournament, not because sort of you wanted to. But with this, I've noticed, especially with this kind of cat army, you've kind of got really into the hobby side of things, and with the converting and the painting and highlighting, and you're kind of actually building the board. It's kind of like it's a weird side of you, Dan, I've never seen before.
I've always enjoyed a little bit of converting, but I've never been deep into the painting. But with the pussies especially, just getting deep into them is just too tempting not to, really. But
I could almost believe the whole point of this army is just allow you to crack bad puns repeatedly. You've went to all this effort in painting just for the bad puns and no other purpose.
Yeah. But no, seriously, after I think what changed my mind and made me think about it more was going over to America. I was in Texas with Mark and Jeff and the others, and seeing the standard that they did, and it just sort of makes you think. It's a whole different way of doing it, and it made me think to myself that it's nice to do the gaming thing, but it's also good to work on the hobby and inspire others. I mean, at the end of the day, if someone goes along to a tournament and sees some plastic miniatures that aren't even painted, they're going to think, oh, they look okay. But if they go along and see something awesome that someone's put all the effort in, it's like, wow, this is really cool. And I think that helps grow the hobby. At least that's what I was thinking. And I just wanted to make a bit more effort and try and improve myself. So, I mean, recently I had some painting lessons with Nick Williams, and that was great. Until recently, I'd never actually thinned the paints, and he gave me this paint thinner, and it's so good. It just feels so much nicer. So I've been going over adding highlights to some of the miniatures and just generally trying to improve them. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've still got a long way to go. Of course, there's some amazing painters out there and such, but I'm trying, bit by bit to improve things. So.
No, that's the only way you can learn. When I look back at when I started painting where I am now, it is every army's a progression, and you have to if you learn a new skill or improve a technique with every army, and then building that and building it, you do just naturally get better and quicker, and it becomes a lot easier to paint up. It's the kind of thing I found, but I have to admit, I would never put you down for a battle board wanker. That was a new one.
So to continue on with the characters there. So we've got two shamans.
Yep.
One's on foot, one's mounted. The mounted one's also got Min's Amulet of the Fireheart, which allows you to cast that second spell, which is awesome. They've both got Bane Chant and Heal, and I love both. Bane Chant is really useful, especially on the Stampede, because people are always taking away that cushion strength. Being able to put it back, fantastic. But it's also great on any unit. I mean, Bane Chant's you really useful, and the heal as well. I really like that, and it's also particularly good with the Lycans, because I found, as I was saying before, they can heal back a lot with the regen. Add the heal spell as well, and suddenly, let's say they're on 12 damage, you might regen. I might get lucky, regen a few, heal a few. Suddenly, they might be on 3 damage after just one turn, and it's just so amazing what it can do. So, love it.
And then Big Fly Boy there, that's a new one.
Well, I've used him previously, but not really used him this since Texas. Really, I wanted a bit of a change.
Who is it?
It's an avatar of the father.
Right.
I used the Naeus Lion, Mantix Naeus Lion, with the Samacris wings, bit of a conversion, and it's a nice unit. It's effectively a dragon. It's got crushing 1 TC free, so in some circumstances it's better, but of course, especially with cock rules, if you get if you've been in combat, you're taking that damage, you're going to lose your flight and it loses its TC, and at which point it's not quite so hitty. But I tried it, a Black Dragon, and I really enjoyed having it to fill gaps. I can just pick on war engines, and people seem to dislike it as well, so it tends to get shot up, and I'm fine with that, because it means the Stampedes and other units aren't getting shot up, so love it, it's nice, I like it.
Fair enough point.
I did vaguely allies, say a Lohi or something, hit harder, which is good, but they don't work with the army as well, because this has got very inspiring, so it's an extra inspiring option, very useful, and also you've got the potential of healing this, and it's also more defensive anyway, being dash 19. And don't forget the Iron Resolve. So it's more likely to hang around than Lohi are. You can heal it back at a pinch, and it's got that smaller footprint, so I'm actually really liking it. So yeah,
and it also means you keep the army pure. I have to admit, whenever I see allies, I do judge people when I see allies in the list, and it is not a good judgment. I secretly judge them. I look and think, oh, filthy, filthy. I appreciate a pure army.
Yeah. So yeah, good.
Right,
so
you
can just about pick out a little bit of a Spirit Walker there. There we go. Yep. Now you can see them at the bottom of the screen. They're my Spirit Walkers. Now these are an interesting unit. They're sort of half chaff, half offensive. They're 140 points, and for me, 140 it's getting to the sort of point where I'm just about okay with just sacrificing it as chaff, if you know what I mean. I'm all right with that. Any more, and you're getting a bit like, well, if I have to, but I'd rather not. But what's interesting about them, they've got that nerve 16, which means they can take a bit of a battering, they are defense free. But when someone charges in with high crushing strength, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's twos. Fine.
But it's pretty much twos for most things, not even high crushing
Exactly.
strength, so it doesn't really
Exactly.
matter.
Yeah, yeah. It's a nice unit, and people tend to ignore it because obviously you're thinking about the Lycans, you're thinking about the Stampedes and everything else. A little chaff unit it's not quite so interesting, but even with them, they've got 20 attacks. You know, they're still at TC1, and don't forget the Shamans, give them crushing strength. I got these into the rear of a horde the other day, 60 attacks, CS1 and TC1. I routed it in one go.
And what are they hitting on?
We're only hitting on 4s, but that's still 30 hits on average.
Yeah, 30 hits, so crushing 2 it would be then with the TC and the Bane chant. That's going to wreck anything.
You really can't ignore them. So, to be honest, if I could be bothered making more cat heads, and these guys, basically, I've used instant mold to take a copy of Alchemy Calaman cat heads, and I've converted them with the Succubi models. And various heresy barbarians and such to give sort of a barbarian sort of cat feel to them. It takes ages to make them, so I'm hesitant to make too many more. But they're a really nice unit, and I could certainly see going bigger on those and taking more of them. But yeah, love those. So
looking at the army as a whole here, it's quite small. You've only got what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 deployments. 9 of them scoring.
Actually, it's just 8 because it's just 2 shapes. Yeah, for scenarios and things, there isn't a huge number of scoring units, but that's fine. I think there's enough. And like you say, it's not a big eye, but what I've got there, I've got the units that hit really, really hard. Those Stampedes, those Lycans, they tend to go through things. And I've got that chaff still, so I find it works reasonably well. I mean, I came up against a Goblin army on Tuesday at Altrincham. That was Andy's army. He had 20 units, so he actually doubled my amount. It wasn't a problem. Just get stuck in there, get killing them all. As long as you remember the scenario, you're absolutely fine.
Yeah, no, that's been a bit of a see. How many Clash of Kings have you won in the past? Is it 4 or 5?
4 times national champions. So,
and how many have there been? There's only been about 4 or 5 of them, hasn't there?
There's been 4. I've won every single one. Yeah.
Yes, and you pretty much won every tournament you go to. But recently, the past 2 tournaments, it's been. I'm going to take some credit for this because I was the one who challenged you at Ultibash and beat you first. You've not been winning.
I don't win every tournament, but I do win a fair few. Yeah, it kind of went wrong in that one, didn't it? But I think that's because I was giving you tactical advice during the game.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, Dan. Whatever helps you sleep at night.
I foolishly pointed out that you could nimble charge with your werewolves, which you hadn't noticed at all, and it all kind of went wrong. And to be fair as well, if we hadn't have had that additional dice lucky reroll that the tournament had, you wouldn't have got into the rear with your surges.
No, that's true.
And if we'd had a turn 7, I would have been able to wrestle it back, hopefully.
Yeah, I still think I'd have got you turn 7, but yeah. So
several trolls, and the fact I gave tactics. Damn it!
And again, though, you did the same at Black Dragon, didn't you? You screwed up. You had the last tournament there.
Yeah, the army worked great at Black Dragon. Very happy with it. But in the final game, all I needed was a draw to win the game because I was ahead on points. Mm-hmm. And a finish game, I've killed slightly more of Martin's army than he's killed of mine. We end and he says, "Oh, I've won." What? Oh, we're playing an invade.
Oh dear. Oh dear. So was this the list you used at Black Dragon? Was this the build?
It was, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got a couple more practice games. I mean, it's altogether possible that I might play a game or 2 this week and then suddenly decide the army's crap, I need to rip out half the units and make a new army, and I'll be up painting till 4 a.m. on next Friday night before the Clash of Kings. This has happened in the past. Mm-hmm. But it worked great at Black Dragon. But for my stupidity with the scenario, it did great in every game. So, I mean, I'm liking it. Yeah.
Is that so?
Did you get it? Liking it with the Lycans? Yeah, liking. No, never mind.
You getting slapped. So what's the general strategy for this list then? How are you going to deploy? What's the general plan? Are you just ram it guts deep?
Typically, there's a couple of combat groups. There's the Stampedes with a Shaman and Chaff. There's the Lycans with a shaman and chaff. The spirit walkers tend to hang around in a gap, probably with the stampedes, but maybe not. And the avatar fills in wherever. So pretty much you just hit really, really hard in a couple of locations, try and get flanks and such where possible, and get across the board as quick as you can, really. So basically, stampedes and such, house brick in your face.
How do you feel you do against like the kind sort of the big sort of I wouldn't call it bad boy in the meta, but the like 90 dice shooting lists that are floating around? Do you think they'll take you off before you get across, or?
Typically, I do fine versus shooting armies just because it's so fast. It depends what we pick on, and whether they get a lucky waiver or a lucky route. I mean, it happens. Once in the one game I lost at Lone Wolf, the one that if I'd won that game, I hopefully would have got best general, but it all went wrong. Anyway, in that one game, I remember the guy did like 1 damage on the Stampede, double 6 waiver. No, that was just one of several things that. Oh, but yeah. You just don't know, do you? But typically, I find that obviously going first helps. The terrain helps. If you can go forward through terrain, you're reducing the effect, unless it's a breath weapon army. Usually, it gets in okay. So it all depends on the army. I know when I came up against Nyx Abyssals with a lot of breath, it was a little tricky, but I still managed to kill enough and win the scenario. So it's just getting into those units as soon as you can. That's why I like the Avatar, because even with a lot of shooting, you're unlikely to take him off in one go unless I advance him into range of far, far too much.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be stopping things. And if you can just reduce the shooting a little bit, then you can start getting in. And people have to pick what they go for. Because I found when I was against Andy the other day, he was picking on my Stampedes sensibly, but that meant the chaff wasn't hurt, and the chaff went into his shooting units, stopped him shooting for a couple of turns, and that was enough to get the rest of the army in and start pulverizing. So you kind of damned either way. So yeah, it's I find it works well against that sort of army.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
So we'll go on to my list now. So first up my list, we've got 2 units of zombie trolls. One of them will be elite, one of them will be vicious. I really, these are my centre of my line. They just get whacked down in the middle of the table and run across to smash face against whatever's in front of them. If someone gives me a chance to do a wee cheeky surge into flank or something like that, they take it. Otherwise, pretty straightforward unit. Surprisingly tough for defence 4.
They are nice units. I use them the same in my army with Vicious Elite, and they work very nicely.
The one thing I'm missing in this build, like in previous undead builds, I've had lots of like healing. And it's the one thing I do miss is when someone hammers the hell out one of these and then you like throw like 10 dice worth of healing at it and suddenly they're looking a lot healthier again. That's the one little trick I'm missing in this build, but I think they're just a solid unit for what they do.
Yeah, they are.
Next up, we got the werewolves. Well, not the old, the GW Vargeist models, but I'm using them as 2 werewolf hordes. One of them has Potion of Strength, and the other one's got Macwar's Potion of the Caterpillar. Mostly because I'm just sick to the back teeth of fighting naturalists where they just spend the entire game sitting in a bloody wood.
You know, it's interesting to note that if Jez, Macwar, got royalties every time someone uses artifact, he'd be so rich by now.
Yeah, this is true. It's up there with Potion of Strength as a kind of like almost auto-include.
I've got an artifact in there, but it's not as good, so people don't use it very often. It's rare you see it, but it's never mind.
It happens. Yeah, no, these boys, especially the ones with the Potion of Strength, are fantastic. That crushing 2, whacking them into the front of something, they pretty much just smash it. And if I can multi-charge them both into something, and again the nimbles, the flanks, and just the speed. I really do like the fun. Yeah, it's the speed 18. It makes a big difference, I find.
Yeah.
Next up, we have my chaff. Slightly more expensive than yours. I've got 2 troops of wraiths. One of them's got the Pipes of Terror, just because I had 15 points spare and just nothing else I could whack a magic item on. These bad boys are quite interesting. They're quite expensive for chaff. They're about 140 points each. But the Def 6 means I can chuck them in front of the enemy. And you can't just charge them with one unit and take them out. You really need to kind of multi-charge them unless you're hitting them with like a proper horde combat unit. And the fact they're flyers keeps them nice and fast as well. They can chase down characters or shooting units.
That's what I like about units like this. They're kind of like my Spirit Walkers in that you can use them as chaff, but they've also got an offensive role and other roles too. That's what you miss if you just go for basic chaff. So having something like this, which can perform multiple roles, is really nice. Your enemy really doesn't want to let you flank these or get them in a rear. Definitely not.
Yeah, because it's one of the things, to the face that they're pretty weak. They're not great. They're
They
very
are, yeah.
unreliable. But when you get them in the flank, or you get the wee surge trick in the rear, really they do start to shine when they get to like 20, 30 attacks at crushing one. So yeah, I kind of find them as just a core. They're just really good multi-purpose unit.
Yeah, I like them.
Finally, my characters. So going from left to right, left's I've got like Canis with the Brew of Haste, so that gets him up to speed 20. That's incredibly useful. I find he basically partners with the werewolves, and that extra little bit of speed is fantastic against like cavalry units because I can just solo charge him in. He does some damage, takes the thunderous charge off them, and that gives then my werewolves are safe to sort of advance into range as well, and then next turn they
Yeah,
can get stuck in. In the
they
middle,
are really nice.
yeah, with the nimble in that, it's just really handy in the flank, especially when you
Yeah,
turn the flank.
I'm a big fan of them.
Yeah, in the middle we've got the vampire riding a dragon. He's got the scrolled armor, so he's Def 6. Again, it's just a scary, scary unit. 10 attacks, crushing 3 ups to hit. As soon as he turns a flank or rear, he just annihilates units. Biggest problem I find with him is I'm a wee bit bad at managing his positioning, and I tend to like leave people the chance to run out the charge arc. So I've got to be a wee bit
Ah,
better at sort of
yes.
hold him at the right distance away from the enemy.
Yeah. You don't really need to get too close, do you, with them being so fast?
No, no, I'm a wee bit maybe too aggressive that way sometimes. And finally on the right, it's this is a work in progress. It'll hopefully be finished by the weekend. It's a
Hopefully.
Revenant King riding an undead worm. It's my first attempt to scratch build and using Milliput. It's not quite worked out like I hoped. It kind of shrank a bit in the head. It should have been a towering head. Unfortunately, kind of overnight when it was drying, the head sank down. So more structural support next time. But he's brought in as a bit of a change because when I went to Alti Bash, I'd had the Revenant King just on a horsey and sort of another chaff unit, etc. But I've dropped a few magic items and condensed down and decided to go for the guy in the flying worm because it gives me first of all the second flyer, and although it's not as hard hitting as the vampire, he's actually tougher in some regards because his nerves up there like 21, I think, if I remember right.
1820.
18, 20. That's high.
Yeah.
That's high,
Yeah.
and it's another
It's
flyer.
it's a good unit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like having that second flyer in there because people can't ignore it because if you can get a flank or rear with that, even though he only hits on fours, that's still going to be pretty horrible.
yeah,
So it just gives you more possibilities, and it's hard to kill. And of course, the advantage here is he can take up objectives and such, which your mounted one couldn't. So
yeah.
it's
Well, it's
good.
one of the probably my army like yours has the problem that it is quite small. Like I've only got like 9 units in the whole army, but all of them at least can pick up objectives, move tokens, capture quarters, etc.
Is it just 9 in total?
9 in total.
Wow,
Six
so
six units and
I've
three
got one
guys.
extra.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we've both got quite small elite armies, really.
I'm not sure if it's the right way to go or not. I have to admit, I prefer it. I like having units that can do things reliably.
Yeah. See,
Um,
when I used Undead, I really liked my zombie regiments. I found them great for objectives and just sitting there in the centre.
Normally I do have zombies all the time. The old version of this list had a couple of hordes, 2, 3 hordes almost, but this list everything's so fast. The slowest things is the zombie trolls at speed 6, but everything else is 18 and
Yeah,
20.
yeah.
You know,
I mean, to be fair, that will be useful if you're coming up against shooting armies and such, which I do think going to be the popular choice.
do you
We'll have
think
to wait
so?
and see.
Yeah. So just to talk
Yeah,
about then what we expect to be facing really. The 90 dice shooting list is the kind of
yeah.
the famous one just now.
It, I think people tend to gravitate towards that sometimes. Not everyone, some people, because it's quite simple and straightforward. You don't really need an awful lot of tactics just to roll the shooting dice, do you?
Hmm.
I, I know that Gary's got his four ogre shooting horde army, and He wasn't certain when I was speaking to him if he was going to take it to the cock or not. But
Hmm.
for someone who's going to be out all night drinking, potentially till 6 a.m. in the morning or something crazy, something you can play without thinking. I suppose it's got certain attractions. But
See, to my mind, like the ogre shooty list probably the one that scares me the most because they hit just as hard in combat as they do at shooting,
well,
almost as hard.
almost as hard. I think hitting on fours makes them. They're still good, but I think if you get those charges off, which you will because of your speed, it shouldn't really be much of an issue.
Hmm.
Um, and don't forget, there should be a decent amount of terrain. I mean, it's meant to have like I'm not 100%, but it's meant to be per the FAQs errata. 6, 7 pieces and a couple of obstacles. And as far as I know, Mantic's going to be doing that unless for not being able to source enough pieces of terrain. So I expect there will be a fair bit. So you can advance through terrain and that sort of thing and get those charges off. And I don't think they're going to be too bad. I mean, I'm hoping we'll see quite a lot of combined arms armies because I think they're stronger. I was playing against Jez's army the other week with his goblins, and that's a nice combined arms. It's got some shooting, but it's also got the nice combat potential. And I really think that's the way to go. I think it's a stronger army, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've got him. We're going to do a similar recording with Jez afterwards, so hopefully that'll appear online soon. But
Yeah.
so who do you fancy for the top? Who do you think
Well, I
list
mean,
combined with player is in with a shout of
I've
being up
I've
there?
I've got to hope that I'm going to win. I don't know
Yeah.
really. I mean, the fact that you beat me, at Altrincham would make me think maybe you got a good chance. But then you didn't do so well in some of your later games, did you?
No, I'm still. The problem is, I'm still getting back in the swing of it and making silly mistakes. The
Yeah,
difference between it, I've only done 2 tournaments so far. The first tournament, Element Kings, the list wasn't working for me. Then the Altrincham, I made the mistakes, not the list really. So although I've tweaked the list a bit, it was kind of more
yeah,
felt. It felt better. So I'm hoping if I don't make mistakes, I'll do quite well. But it's just keeping my eye like you on the scenario a bit more.
yeah. I think Alan's one to watch. I think he's number 2 or 3 in the UK at the moment. Kev, who won Altrincham, he's a very good player, and I think he's definitely one to watch. I'm hoping for a practice game
Yeah,
against
he
him on
smashed
Tuesday.
me at Altrincham. Absolutely
Um,
smashed me.
Martin, who beat me at Black Dragon, definite chance. I mean, there's a lot of good players out there. Too many to really mention. I mean, Nick's been doing consistently well. He's ranked quite high as well. So he might do well. I mean, Darren Parks. I don't know. I know he's been saying he wants to win, but he's not been to a tournament in ages, and he's not really been playing. And I think that's going to count against him because you're rude. You need to, keep your hand in, keep playing. So, not sure, but there's some very good players. And don't forget, we've got people coming from other countries. We've got a load of Spanish guys coming. There's people coming from all over the place. 80 people. There's going to be people that I haven't played before who've been winning tournaments elsewhere. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah, it's going to make it a bit interesting because normally we're kind of based in the north of England up here, so it's kind of you see the same faces at all the kind of tournaments normally. It's a similar people, so you kind of know each other. You know roughly what you're going to expect when you rock up the table. But with 80 people, considering most tournaments are only normally about 20 strong, that's throwing a big unknown element in
Yeah.
there.
I mean, down south, there's been a couple of Night Stalker armies that have been doing very well winning tournaments. The the Night Stalker shooty build is very powerful. Well, also, it's got speed elements as well. So I don't know the guys myself who necessarily who's been winning that, but I've heard they've been doing very well. So that could be an interesting challenge. But again, I think the speed of our armies will really help against that sort of army. So. Yeah.
So would you not want to face? I know you said balance. Is any particular race or army you think is the that's bad. I don't want to go near that.
Um, it, it's a difficult one. I actually find Dwarves is an interesting one to face because they've got a lot of shooting and they've also got the very hard units. I mean, Berserker Brocks, for example, they're actually really hard to rout. I mean, my Stampedes don't typically take them in one go. I mean, what are they? Nerf 24 or something?
Yeah, they're like an undead unit almost in that
I've only
regard.
hit 15 times, so
Hmm.
I can't really go through those. And then it sort of gets trickier. We start getting attrition off. So a balanced dwarf army is actually one of the more challenging ones sometimes. But I don't know. I think, as I say, I'd like to see lots of shooting because I've got the speed. So I guess the combined armies where people play it really well and they hide things behind, so you can't get the charges. I think it's probably more the tactics and how people play them
Hmm.
rather than the army itself. But I think that's true for Kings of War in general. The most powerful looking army on paper can be absolutely terrible if people don't use them exactly right. So I don't think there's anything I really don't overly want to face.
I have to admit, it's
How
the
about yourself?
nature lists. I find the nature lists really
Oh,
challenging with the earth elementals. As a sort of they've got that anvil of earth elementals, and then they've got the
yeah,
shooting, they've got the fast units, the tough
I
flyers.
like Earth Elementals because I'm damaging them on twos, aren't I, with the Stampedes?
Yeah, I suppose you're in
I
the
don't
few
mind
that's
them.
going to go straight through them.
Yeah, unless people can, if they can get the TC off, then obviously that's a different matter. But if I can get those Stampedes in, then I'm laughing. So
Hmm.
it's hard to say.
Yep.
Yeah, what's your highest crushing? I suppose it's your
3.
dragon, isn't it?
Yeah, the
But
dragon and
other
the
than
worm.
that, yeah, you've not got a huge amount of crushing. So I think how you use those two is going to be quite
Oh,
critical.
I've got almost virtually everything in the everything the army's got at least crushing one.
And the trolls are too. I do
Yeah,
find them
trolls are
that they're
2, one of the werewolves 2. So
yeah.
yeah, I tend to not like units without crushing. It's just a personal preference. But again, I like to try and maximise my frontage in the fight, so that if I put two, like ideally, if I put any 2 units into something, it should almost always pop it.
Yeah, well, that's sort of what I've gone for. As to say, I've tried to keep those elements close together. What I did wrong at Altrincham was I tried separating them a bit more because I
Yeah,
was
you're a
trying
bit
to.
wide across the table.
I did. I was trying to do too much, and you you pointed out to me, and you were right. It just didn't work as well. So I've gone back to tighter groups, and it works so much better. Like
Hmm.
I say at Black Dragon, if it wasn't for my stupidity, I did great in every game. I was really happy with it. So yeah, I think it's just getting those units in and wipe them
Excellent.
out.
Well, we'll have a catch up after the tournament and go over how we
Yeah.
went.
Yeah.
See how all this theory hammer turns out
Uh,
in reality.
I tell you, 80 people, biggest cock ever.
And on that note, goodbye. And if you like to see, leave a comment, anything like that, feel free. It's always nice. And
Yeah.
that's it. Otherwise, speak to you all later.
Yeah.